So, namaste to all of you, and Suprapadam again. So it's great to see a crop of the leaders of tomorrow sitting in this room, and I'm so delighted to be part of this great tradition of passing on whatever little learning I may have had over the last several decades of service. So I understand that this is a policy boot camp where all of you are trying to understand what are the elements of government policy, where India is and where it needs to go forward and how it can go forward. I mean, and how we can take the entire country together. I mean, in its march towards progress, and so on and so forth. I think there may be many other questions which you may get addressed over the course of your varied presentations. Now, my presentation is focused on how we will be able to progress as a country. You must have heard Honorable Prime Minister talk about India at 2047. I think that's a very long way off. I think today even 1 year is a long way off. I think it's too far away, because in this technology world, I think they call it the VUCA world. The world is completely uncertain, volatile, and ambiguous. I think so that's impossible for you to make any predictions, and it's a very, very challenging task. So therefore, India at 2047, leave alone, so you can understand the amount of uncertainty it has. But despite the uncertainty, it's very clear there are many things that we want to do may not be even feasible at the time, or maybe not be maybe irrelevant at that time. But there are very fundamental things that we need to anyway do. So that far is very clear. So what are those very fundamental things that we need to look at is something which I would like to concentrate. Not all of them. I will focus on two items. That is just infrastructure and technology. I think because definitely as a country we all need infrastructure, right? We need basic services. We need a little more than basic services, and we also need. If India has to progress and become a Vishwaguru, as our Honorable Prime Minister often has stated in his dreams. It is very important that we also be in technology, because obviously today the world is ruled by technology. One can well imagine in 2047 it will be ruled by the persons who have access to the best in kind of technology. So I will. So the flow of this presentation will be like this. When I will look at global winds, maybe where we are in this state of affairs in the world. I think what are our national aspirations? National aspiration is again a very widely debated topic. What is my aspiration will be different from somebody else's aspiration. But as a nation, we aspire to something, right? I think so, which includes this infrastructure and technology. But there may be so many other things. I think so. It can be like the seven blind men and the elephant. I think in a sense. But still, you can probably come to some kind of common understanding of what it should be. Impact of infrastructure and technologies, that is the focus of my topic, and I will talk about these two top verticals and say what should be done. So if you look at the global winds, there are very many factors, but I think out of which the factors which you often have heard, I think the first one is climate change. This is something which is disrupting even the rains of what is happening today. The last few days is also because of rain. Of the disruption in the climate. The intensity of disruption is probably going to scale up as we go by, because I don't think the world has learned. I think we are still living the lives in a manner which is completely antithetical to our own samskriti of treating the earth as a living life, on whom I think I think every day morning there's a prayer. Some of you may be saying that, please, Bhumi Mata, please, forgive us for stepping on you, and then Shamaswa. I think that's what we say, because in a sense that is our culture. But I think all of us have forgotten that. I think that's a very sad part of that. So we are in our daily lives kind of intruding into the existence of nature as such. But that kind of thought process is gone. So today we have this climate change which is hanging above us. I think all world leaders have made statements about net zero by whatever date. I think 2050 by somebody. Honorable Prime Minister announced 2070 for us. And maybe energy independence by 2047, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of statements made. Some have, and believe me, I think India has taken a lot of steps. But then whether these steps taken by us and by the world and the other countries as at large is enough is a question mark. I think that's a different matter. Then we have disruptive geopolitics, which is working in our favor in many ways. I think today India is commanding a lot of capital, I think, in the markets because of the fact that global geopolitics has been disrupted. Then, but it also led to certain uncertainty. A lot of supply chains have been disrupted. Many companies have had problems, etc., etc. Then we have demographic transitions happening. Some countries, I think, you are having aging as a problem. Europe, Japan, and all those things. Population is on the wrong side of 50s and 60s. So, as a result of which, probably migration is taking place. And migration is also taking place because of so many other factors. I think you must have seen certain incidents across the world when I think where migration has created a problem. So I think migration as an issue is something which cannot be prevented. People are moving from rural to urban, from urban to maybe foreign countries, from one country to another. I think all those things are happening. But on how it is going to affect the individual countries, how it is going to affect the world is something which is uncertain again, but it is a major factor today. Let us be very clear about that. Many countries are not finding workers to do their basic things. So how are they going to manage? So that is why I think they have gone into robotics, I think automation and so on and so forth. So, so this is a very important, demographic transition is a very important factor that determines policies of countries. Because, if they have no other way to actually run the economy, I think then they will have to find other ways, right? I think if they don't have people, they have to find other ways. So that's what is driving policies in various countries. Pervasive AI in data economy, I think. Today we have AI in everything. You must have heard about ChatGPT. Some of you must have experimented with that. Maybe ChatGPT is getting embedded into various applications in many ways. I think so. AI is becoming pervasive. I think many of the devices that you have, the mobile phone, also may have AI. I think one never knows. I think so. All these applications come embedded with that. It may be learning at your cost. I think so. And then therefore there's a huge data economy which has got built. The digital economy has got a data economy as part of that. So how the data which is thrown out by all of us individually, and every minute we are throwing out data because of our mobile phones, maybe our IoT devices and so on and so forth. Somebody is making use of that. Google, Facebook, Amazon's, everybody is making use of that. So this is a huge economy on how people use data for creating livelihoods or maybe businesses and so on and so forth. Then you have oligopolies or the big tech, because big is becoming bigger. Today, I think, if Microsoft Bing has got ChatGPT embedded into it, what is he doing basically? I think he's basically learning at your expense. If you look at Google, they are learning at your expense. Every time you switch on your maps, I think maybe you're giving some sense to him, I think some micro sense to him, I think, so that he can become richer and bigger. So big tech is getting bigger. So I think that is also dangerous, I think. In a sense, dangerous means it imposes oligopolies, monopolies, etc., which I think is not good for the economy, I think. So this is an overarching factor that we have to be conscious about. So are we, as a policy maker, am I conscious in my policies about this? Whether as users are we conscious about this, of big getting bigger? Then rising citizen and consumer expectancy. This is inexorable, I think. Every passing day, I think every consumer wants better, something bigger, something more, better experience and so on and so forth. And finally, I think you also have this platformization of infrastructure and service. Everything is becoming a platform, right? Your e-commerce has now become a platform, Amazons and Flipkarts and so on and so forth. Today, transportation has become a platform, Olas and Ubers and lifts and name it, you are there. So everything people are, creating platforms, I think. So, UPI is a platform. It is actually a payments platform, I think, on which anybody can socket themselves into and plug into, and then you are there. I think you can buy, sell, pay, receive, and so on and so forth. So therefore, platformization is a very rising trend, I think that's part of the digital economy that we are talking about. So there are maybe so many other global winds, but this I felt was very powerful in the sense that these are transformative in nature. So we need to necessarily understand them and see how we can tap them and use them for our benefit. Now let me also show the uncertainty. We talked about uncertainty, right? I think there's something called a Global Economic Policy Uncertainty Index. You can Google for that. So they calculate, this is based on text search, I think they search the texts of various newspapers, etc. Look for words which create uncertainty, etc. And then assess how uncertain the economy of that country is. It's a very strange way of calculating the economic uncertainty, but this is the way it is. Look at it in the recent times, because I mean, because of the China, because of Ukraine, because of COVID, and so many other factors, the uncertainty levels have actually gone up, I mean, very significantly. But incidentally, so therefore, policy making in this environment is very difficult, right? You can well understand. So similarly, enterprises surviving in such a kind of uncertainty is also very difficult, right? I mean, how do you know? I mean, tomorrow my chipset may not come from America. I mean, I have ordered something from China, tomorrow there may be an import ban. I don't know about that. Or my product has been sent out, I don't know, that country may actually block it. I mean, I think because of the supply chain disruption, changes of policy, etc. So there are so many uncertainties which have evolved because of that. Companies have learned to steer around that. But this is a very important thing which actually shapes the flow of capital, decision making in business, policy making by governments, and so on and so forth. Now, because of this change in the global geopolitics, I think there has been very significant shifts in the flow of capital. You look at it. I'm just pulling out some facts which for you to understand the big picture, how uncertainty affects. So suddenly some countries have become kosher in the sense of foreign direct investment. Some countries have become negative. China at the other end, and India, maybe, I don't know, whatever it is, Colombia and many other countries on this end have become positive, I think, because we are getting more capital, somebody is getting less capital. This is how international geopolitics affects countries in so many ways, I think. Then you have this relationship between innovation and development. This is also another factor. I just mentioned how the development of technology is very important for us and how it is directly related to development. So this is a global factor. When I talked about AI, talked about data economy, these are all related to innovation. I mean, this is one part of innovation. There is an issue of technology development and innovation. So if you see, the bottom is about GDP per capita, the above is about the global innovation index score. So there is a linear relationship between GDP per capita and your global innovation. The more you innovate, the more likely you are to be, I think, higher on the GDP per capita. So what I'm trying to say, the size of the bubble is the size of population. I think it's just that. So India is doing well in terms of innovation, but I think there are many countries which are up there. The big bubble which is not colored is China.
Sir, would you like a handheld mic so that you can use it and move around freely?
I can do that. Thank you. So what essentially I'm meaning is that the global winds are very clear. You innovate and you survive. If you don't innovate, you perish. That's how it is. As an economy, as an individual, may not make a difference. So if you look at it, on the right side, I've shown you the patent activity. I think in terms of the number of patents filed in 2021. So look at the scale of China versus India. India is nowhere there in this curve. I think if you look at it, China has filed some 15 lakh patents, 1.5 million patents in 2021. India at the same time filed something like, I think it's around 50,000 or something like 50,000. Huh? Oh, yes, 61,000, correct. So therefore, the scale, if you look at the scale, it's maybe 20 times, I think, of us. So I don't know whether we'll be able to match China, but I'm sure that we need to get somewhere there, I think. We need to have more innovation in our country. Innovators should actually, because India generally, I think the entrepreneurial spirit does not include, I think, these kind of high-end activities like filing global patents and so on and so forth. People are a little more, what I would say, conservative, because it requires a lot of patience, a lot of money to actually do the innovation, etc., to filing the patent, etc. So therefore, it's very important to understand what scale we are in and how this matters to us. So innovation is a very important global wind which needs attention. So let me now, having seen some of the factors about the global winds, it's my duty also to show where India is, I think. So let me touch on some of these parameters. I think, I will not touch all of them, but some of them I think are relevant. So India is the 5th largest economy. I think maybe it is already on the way to become 4th. I think 3rd largest by PPP, that is by purchasing power parity. 7th rank in FDI inflows. This keeps fluctuating, but I think we are steadily improving. Rank 40 in Global Innovation Index. It's jumped by 6 places in 2022. 3rd largest startup ecosystem with 107 unicorns and 340 billion in valuations. Highest mobile data consumption, 21 GB per mobile user per month. And highest digital payment transactions, about 48 billion transactions, which is almost like 46% or 47% of the world's digital transactions. So, in many parameters, India is doing very well, I think, and if you look at this is very interesting. You've seen the World Economic Policy Uncertainty Index. India's economic policy uncertainty shows that our volatility has been much less, because our economy, fortunately or unfortunately, is not connected to the world economy significantly because we don't depend on exports. We are a consumption-led country. Whether it is good or bad is a matter of debate. That's a different matter. But it actually insulates us from global factors. But there are certain factors which affect us, like oil prices and so on and so forth. So our uncertainty, because of certain good economic policies that we have been following through COVID and through all these economic uncertainties, have helped us to actually steer that without creating less uncertainty. That is why I guess our economy has become, is doing well in recent times because of the fact that our policies have reduced the level of uncertainty that business faces or probably industry faces in general. So therefore, some of these have actually helped. From a high level of uncertainty in the past to a low level of, to a moderate uncertainties compared to the world. The world was around 300. Our index is hovering around less than 100 or near 100. Now, while we say all this, we have had so many developments. There are so many things that we need to do, and which high-level stuff which actually impacts our economy. The first one is, I would say, food inflation. I think, and imported oil inflation. I think today, now, last season probably it was onion. Now it is tomatoes. I think so. This vulnerability is something which probably affects us, not very significantly, but it actually moves your inflation by a percentage point or something like that, creating problems in terms of, say, monetary policy and so on and so forth. Then we have a major problem of imported oil inflation. I think because every time the oil spikes in the global market, we have a problem of exchange rate devaluations and reduction in our foreign exchange reserves and so on and so forth. So these impacts are there. So this is a factor that we need to look at. How do we handle this? So when I say all these vulnerabilities, these essentially translate into actually threats or risks or something like that. So how do we mitigate these risks? So our policy is all about that, right? So while we look at developing our infrastructure, etc., we also have to look at how to minimize our risks. So each of these factors have to be handled through an effective policy measure, right? So how do we do that? I think, say, maybe our solar energy program, I think of 450 gigawatt by 2030 is something that which will help us to bring down our oil prices. So like that, I think we need to have a policy measure for each of them. High energy imports, which includes coal, which has impact on forex, etc. High cost of capital. So today you go to a bank, I think any entrepreneur is able to borrow at anything between, say, 10, 11, 12%, right? I think over the last several years, it has actually come down. What used to be 13, 14% has actually come down to about 10% or 11%. If you're a premium customer, you may get it at 9 or 8%. Maybe some may get it at 7%, big mega corporations. So the cost of capital is something which is, and why is the capital so costly? It is because of our inflation, I think. If our inflation can be brought down, the erosion of capital or the money value of time value of money actually comes down, right? I think because money doesn't erode over a period of time. So our collective focus will be on how to control it. That is why controlling inflation is very, very important, to bring it below, say, 4%. Currently, I think we are hoping to hold it between 4 to 6%. That's our monetary policy. But we have to bring it down further over the long term, and that can be done only if you handle the first bullet. Food inflation, oil inflation has to be handled. So how these all matter to the real economy is something which we need to be conscious of. If we can reduce the cost of capital, then our entrepreneurs can borrow without difficulty. Otherwise, today in your project report, if you want to borrow, say, about 50 lakhs, I think interest is a very major component, right? I think if you write various line items, finance costs in terms of interest is a very major item. So while you make profits, in most of the sectors, the profit margin is hardly about 7, 10 or 3, 4% in some cases. How do you expect to pay interest at 9% and 10%, right? So therefore, your finance costs have to be brought down, I think. So the cost of capital is something, this is a very, very macro issue, I think. I don't think anybody, even North Block may not be able to do much. It is all put together collectively. I think RBI, North Block, maybe industry, all of us have to work together to see how you can bring it down. Because essentially all these points are connected. Importing oil leads to depreciation. Depreciation leads to, I think your higher interest costs. So both the exchange rate fluctuations as well as inflation has an impact on the cost of capital. Because cost of capital, if you look at it, is a combination of both. It is how much low interest that a person is willing to offer to take for lending his money to you, right? I think so. He has to make sure that he makes enough in that. So somebody from a foreign country who is actually bringing money into the country has got one more thing called the risk of the economy, the economic uncertainty that he faces when he sends money to your economy. So in addition to the inflation and this exchange rate fluctuations, he also he has to factor for what is known as a risk premium, right? Because if India is very uncertain, then I think its risk premium goes up. If he wants to send money to Pakistan, I think obviously his risk premium maybe 100 or 200 basis points or 500 basis points over the normal, I think. But if he sends to India, you can see the economic policy uncertainty is much lower. So he would put lower value. So he is able to offer you at a lower price of capital. So that's why more money is coming in, because his risks are lower, I think. So then we have a high fiscal deficit. This is a major threat which is around the corner. Many of us not seeing it. There is some debate in the newspapers about that. Some states are borrowing left, right and center and actually throwing money at people, I think. So many, this subsidy, bus subsidy, school subsidy, I think road subsidy, I think for rice subsidy, all kinds of subsidies are flowing into the, so it's actually suicide fiscal suicide I would call it, I think, to actually throw money into things which do not bring multiplier effect to the economy. If you are going to pump some money into the economy and it goes and creates multiplier effect, right? So you throw say 1 lakh crores into the economy. If it brings return of say 3 lakh crores or 5 lakh crores, is worth it, right? If it is just going to be consumed and then it disappears, then I think this is a waste, right? I think it actually results in, it could have been productively deployed elsewhere. So states need to become very, very careful about where they put the money. That's very, very important. This has been flagged by the government of India several times to many states, but some states are in a state of serious fiscal distress because they have reached limits of borrowing that is the extent that their interest cost, they are not able to meet they are finding it difficult to pay the interest that arise of the loans that they have taken, right? I wouldn't want to name the states. You can do some research based on the RBI's, RBI puts out a report on states every year with their, what is the outstanding borrowings and so on and so forth. So my point is that this is therefore the overall big economic picture has to be seen by all of us, the central government, the state governments, local governments, etc. Then high logistics costs. So if somebody takes a truck from say Ambala to Mumbai port, if he has to stop in 50 places and pay bribes to 10 policemen, 20 road traffic inspectors, say 5 customs officials and so on and so forth, then obviously he will not make money. I think why would you export? Right? Nobody will do that. Everybody will try to, reduce his production. So thanks to GST, what has happened is now I think there is a seamless this thing. There are no checkposts right now because you have a e-way bill which is linked to FASTag and that is linked to your GSTN accounts and so on and so forth. So therefore, the lorries do not stop. So there are some reforms which have happened. More reforms have to happen. So all this effectively, what I am saying will add to the costs of somebody who's driving. Somebody is taking a goods worth 100 rupees. If he spends 3 rupees for transportation or 5 rupees for transportation, it works out for him. He still can probably sell it for 110 or 120 or something like that. If he spends 20 rupees on transportation, logistics, etc., then I think obviously it won't work for him because his margins, he can sell it in the market only for that same 110. How will it work out for him? So therefore, it's very important that we bring down the cost of logistics seriously. So how do we make policies which will actually enable people to spend less while transporting goods from the manufacturing point to the selling point? It's a very, very important vulnerability. Here in India, it is said that our logistic cost is nearly about 13% of our GDP. Whereas in other countries, I think it's about 5-6%. This has come down because of our GST reforms. It's a big step forward. But there are much more to be done. I think making transportation efficient so that the cost of transportation is brought down. There are so many elements to this. I think I wouldn't be able to dwell on that, but it's a major vulnerability which needs to be handled. You must have heard of this PM Gati Shakti program. This is actually targeting this high logistics program. So we have just started. I think probably in some years to come, I think maybe we may be able to bring it down through multimodal transportation, bringing down the transaction costs and so on and so forth. Manufacturing and service is yet to graduate into high tech. I think like some of the things like the Honorable Prime Minister has been trying is like the semiconductor fab. So very, very high tech area where I think we have not been able to breach into, but now I think we have gotten close to that. Micron's decision to invest on an ATMP facility, which is actually an assembly testing packaging facility in Gujarat, is a big step forward. I think maybe then we have to backward integrate into the fab soon maybe. Then infrastructure gaps. So this is the topic of my discussion. So there are gaps in this thing. Suppose I want to transport again from Ambala to Mumbai. If the roads are of bad quality, then you can understand how many times it has to stop, how the lorries will break down, how the life of a lorry will come down, so the lorry owner has to charge more to take care of his depreciation of his asset, and so on and so forth. So the impact on the economy you can well understand. So if the infrastructure is good, you have the Delhi-Mumbai expressway which has now partly been inaugurated, non-stop you can drive this thing. You remember the same lorry probably if it can cut the travel time by say 20%, can be used 20% more times, in a year. So his asset utilization goes up, right? So a lorry owner makes more money, so he is able to probably reduce the charge he inflicts on the manufacturer who transports his goods, right? So therefore, infrastructure, if it is of quality and if it is efficient, can actually reduce the logistics costs. And finally, inadequate investment in R&D. So I will touch on the last two bullets only. There are so many other things on top, I think, which probably needs to be discussed and debated at length. Now, I've explained this to you. I think the cost of capital, varies from sector to sector. You can see that from 14 to 17 to 21, the cost of capital has been going down, though not in a very secular fashion, but I think in most of the sectors it has gone down, which I think is good, which means that our policy is working, I think. So, I would request that maybe Arvind, you can share the presentation with all of them, I think. So we'll make it available to you, I think, please. So, the benefit is that there is from here, it flows into that. If your policy rates, I think in terms of say your, what they call as the GSEC rates, the government security rates, if they actually come down through good monetary policy management, through good fiscal policy management, all of them have an impact on these rates, reduce the economic uncertainty of a country, then I think probably it will go down over a period of time. So it has been going down secularly, which is excellent. So I think this has a salutary effect on how lending takes place from the banks to various sectors. But each sector is at a different level because the risk level of each of the industries is different, right? All of you understand that, I think. Business reforms. I think so. While we talk about the overall macroeconomic policy, etc., business reforms for enabling them to create jobs. In fact, I would say the biggest heroes in this country are those entrepreneurs, because they are the ones who create jobs for people, right? I think. The people who are employed like me are no heroes. I think the people who are actually taking the plunge by putting the money on the table and investing and taking and going through all those vulnerabilities which I listed, they are the real heroes of the country, because the SMEs are the biggest heroes in the country, because they have very little support. I think the big industry at least can talk to a few people, get things done, etc. But who is willing to listen to a small entrepreneur? Very, very difficult, right? So they are the heroes of our country. They produce far more jobs per lakh of investment than the big industry, if you can do a calculation, I think. So we need to take care of how this business does their business, right? So therefore, the government has done a lot of things, a lot more, a lot of miles to go still. Corporate tax has been reduced, tax exemption for investments by sovereign wealth funds, so that more capital can come into the country and make it available and can be made available to industry. Production-linked incentives for various sectors. I think at least 14 sectors, or maybe now it is about 20 sectors, have PLIs which gives about anything between 4 to 6% of production as incentive to them to reduce. Because the idea of the PLI is because Indian industry suffers from a lot of inefficiencies, which is not of their own making, right? Logistics cost is outside my factory gate, right? I'm not responsible why it's expensive on the road, right? So government has compensated them through this mechanism, I think. So this is some kind of compensation to come for attracting people to put investment and then start industry. Similarly, ease of doing business. 300 reforms have been done across 72 action points by state governments. 40,000 compliances have been reduced to improve ecosystem. Unnecessary formats, inspections, permits, licenses. But nearly 40,000 of them have been completely eliminated or modified, reduced, or whatever. Project development cells in 29 ministries to handhold investors. For this ease of doing business, you can Google ease of doing business. There is a DPIT, Department of Industry, whose website is there, which gives you a big picture of, because each of you are interested maybe in some of these areas, right? So you can Google that and then check for yourself on what's happening in the government of India as well as in all the states. This is a national mission, I think, so where all the states are also involved. And there is a national single window system, I think, because as I told you, some industry takes so many months and years to get clearances. Then by the time he does a project report, it is 10 crores. By the time the bank sanctions it, it is already 12 crores. By the time the government gives me some license or permit, it is already 15 crores. So how do you expect me to fund that remaining 3 crores or 5 crores? Nothing. So this is the constant problem of any small industries. Big guys may always find the money, but the small industries, please understand the plight. So therefore, time is of the essence. If you can give clearances in say 1 day, 24 hours or 48 hours, that should be a scale. If somebody's in Jurong, in Jebel Ali free trade zone in Singapore, in the Dubai or something like that, people are able to get it in 24 hours. That's what is said. So we should also aim for that. If that is the best practice, then we should aim for that. All of you are going to go into some, I'm sure that some of you will go into government, some of you will go into industry, somewhere in influential positions. Let us all work together on how we can crash this time. I'll give a small example of what we have done, I think, because I must also be practicing what I preach, right? I think so. We in the Department of Telecom, I think, to get a right of way permission from any local body for laying an optic fiber or to install a tower used to take about 200 days. Today we have set up a portal called ROW portal. It's called Sugam Sanchar. Maybe some of you can Google that. So there is a dashboard there on how the time taken for clearance has actually come down. What used to take 200 days currently takes between 10 to 12 days, right? So we have brought it down. Our aim is to actually bring it down to a few days, maybe 2 days or 3 days. So we have worked intensively with the state governments and the local bodies. I think there is a national portal. There are a series of state portals all linked together by APIs. Payments are made online. The orders are given online. So the telecom service providers are able to get decisions on their applications for towers and optic fibers quickly. So I'm just saying that this is just an example. There are many other departments who are doing something very similar. But we need to bring down this time. So and avoid the costs which people unnecessarily incur. So this is what I just said, what used to take 283 days has now come down to about 3 days, I think, over the last few years, because of the fact that we have been able to automate it and also bring down the states to actually cooperate on this very massive effort. Now, there are a lot of other things which are going on in the economy, which includes, say, inclusion and disintermediation. So there are many people, the corners of the economy, where people are left out. There is somebody, poor person who is left out of an insurance scheme, somebody who is left out of a banking scheme, somebody who is left out of business because of the fact that there is difficulty in doing business or difficulty in transacting it. So today we have I talked about digital platforms, how digital platforms have transformed this country. These are examples. The Aadhaar is a digital platform which solves your identity problem. At the click of a button on your mobile phone, you're able to do it. Or you walk across, you register your ID, you're there. Then after that, it's only a click of a button. Then you have GEM. There were thousands of people who are of small vendors who were selling to government, who had problems with payments, who had also payments with participating in contracts transparently. Because some section officer sitting in some industry from ministry will say, okay, I think there used to be paper applications and so on and so forth. You could do anything with that. But today all that has changed. You now want to come on a digital last 7-8 years. GEM has ensured that nearly about 1 lakh crore of government purchases, small government purchases on paper, ink or whatever, everything happens through this platform. Vendors are getting online payments, I think. So tenders are done transparently. The machine itself evaluates and tells you, who is the lowest, right? So GEM is a transformation for government procurement. It's a platform. UPI is a payments platform, which you are all aware. GSTN is an automated platform for small businesses. If you want to get registered get a GSTN number, those days what used to be called a VAT number, I think people used to toil. But today the GSTN platform is completely automatic. You go online and then you do all your authentication of your documents and you're there, I think. Then CoWIN, you all understand now in COVID times how this platform helped us. I think now the CoWIN is now moving into what is known as a universal health stack. I think you may like to Google, if somebody is interested in health, please look at it on insurance and so on and so forth. And finally now a new platform which is an alternative to Amazons and the Flipkarts. The Amazons and Flipkarts are also, they're good. I think they deliver goods on time, you get the best rates and so on and so forth. But inside that there is an element which many of us may not be aware. The data, how it is being used, whether it is being used for common good or somebody's private good. Whether there is a discrimination between two suppliers whose data which Amazon sees is something which we do not know. I think you are a supplier A, supplier B. Whether Amazon discriminates between you and ensures that A succeeds and B fails, we do not know. I think, maybe because it's a private industry, So therefore, there needs to be democracy in business platforms. So the government of India has launched what is known as an open network digital commerce, ONDC. It's a digital platform for e-commerce. Many people are plugging in. It's a new initiative. Maybe we'll see whether it succeeds or fails. I think. But this is so. These are some examples of how disintermediation can be done, how inclusion can be achieved. Now, on the digital sector, I think, how we have progressed and where we have failed, I think maybe. You look at the households with computer and internet access. On the other side, we have Odisha with hardly about, say, 4 per 100 households. Whereas in Delhi, I think at least about 35 households have got computer devices, right? So you may have internet, but if you're not able to access the internet, then what's the use for you, right? That is where the digital divide starts. So this is where we are in a state of how do we plug this digital divide is a question mark. So how do we ensure that devices become more affordable, more people are able to access the internet to transact whatever they want to, and so on and so forth. Smartphone, more and more people are owning smartphones, which is a good idea. About 65% are owning smartphones, whereas the data costs have been falling. I think they've fallen to nearly about 9 rupees per GB. So then finally, I think we have one more issue called the ability to use the internet. You may have internet in your household, but if you are not able to know how to use the internet to your benefit, right? You may use for entertainment, that is a different matter. But if you are able to use it for business, if you are able to use it for education, for health, for accessing government benefits, then I think that you are there, right? So how do we help people to use that? So there is a digital divide in the ability to use. So these are issues. I mean, I'm just flagging issues which are plaguing us. Then we have a very large startup ecosystem, which I just mentioned. I think I don't want to go into these numbers. I think this is something which everybody knows. So here also, I think we are doing very well because it's a 4 times growth rate in the number of in the investments made by various countries into India. Then let's look at innovation. Innovation, I think we are doing very well. In fact, we have jumped about 10 places, but there are many areas where we need attention, right? So we need to have the number of years in which a person spends in school has to go up, because people become educated. They're able to use innovation. They are also able to innovate. So that has to go up definitely. Then researchers, in number of researchers per million population is a little low compared to other countries, I think. So 62 per million population, just low. China is probably 10 times of what we have. So ICT access, we just said, I think only about 65% have got smartphones or access to the internet. Environmental performance, female employees who have got advanced degrees. So there are a number of areas where I think we need to probably improve. There are some areas where we have done well, where the rank is very good, but there are some areas where probably we need to do better. So our innovation will depend upon all these input factors, which will help us to actually use and also to innovate. So if you look at this verticals which have ranked countries based on the innovation index, I think one of the areas where we are doing extremely well is R&D. In R&D, I think we have got a fairly good manpower, etc., etc. But if you look at skills, we are low. In terms of ICT usage, we are low. In terms of finance availability, also we are not doing well. So there are some areas where we need to improve. This is an example of the filings by India and China over the last several years. You can look at it almost like 50 times. The number, I think from 37. This is 2020 data. So it's 37,000 against 1.4 million. This is our SDG index. I think so. I will not go into that. Some of you who are interested can go to the World Bank's SDG dashboard, where it gives the performance of the countries and how we are progressing. So there are some areas where I think we are not doing well, all too well. Like for instance, in sustainable cities, we are not doing well. I think maybe in some areas where the arrow is horizontal, there are areas where there are some things where we have done well, like climate action, maybe health, well-being, and so on and so forth, and poverty also. I think we have done well, but there are a number of areas where I think challenges remain, and we need to work on all of them, I think. On saturation, this is an area, because when we are measuring India's progress, we also need to look at, we can't solve all the problems, right? I think so. The Honorable Prime Minister has taken a decision, let's solve some of the basic problems like housing, health, or maybe things like, say, access to bank finance. So we just pick out some 7, 8, or 9, 10 areas and then ensure that the poorest of the poor who have not accessed these services are able to access them. So that's what the government has been doing in the last 7 to 9 years. And like Jal Jeevan Mission, getting a running tap connection to every household in the country. This is something which I think we have been working on. Maybe by 2024, we hope to reach about 20 crore households. 478 million bank accounts have been opened under the financial inclusion scheme called Jan Dhan Yojana, right? People who never had a bank account. The last 8 years, 474 million. This is no mean number. This has actually helped people to receive certain direct benefit transfers from the government during COVID. You won't believe it. I was in the finance ministry when the COVID struck. We transferred 60,000 crores in just by the flick of a switch. We were able to do that. The money just reached the bank account just like that, because we were able to identify those bank accounts and then it got transferred seamlessly. So everybody having a bank account since 1947, this has happened in the last 7 years. So now, look at the what you call as multiplier effects of this. Now many of them, like for instance, 34 million of them who are street vendors have received loans, I think, for the first time in the last couple of years. The government has launched what is known as a street vendors finance program. Many of you must be aware of that. So they have received money because they have a bank account, right? And they have a UPI where they can receive payments and so on and so forth. 4.17 crores houses have to be built for the economic, and a lot of it has been achieved. Nearly about 2.5 crores have already been built. We are now launched from the Department of Telecom a 4G saturation project to cover 30,000 uncovered villages. Right? There are still 30,000 villages which do not have telecom connectivity. So by middle of next year, I think all of them will have a 4G tower which they can access. The construction work is going on now. I think it's a 30,000 crore project. Then we have 3.2 million people who received free treatment under the Prime Minister's Swasthya Bima Yojana. I think you must have heard about this Ayushman Bharat scheme. So that is it. Then 18,000 unconnected villages were electrified. I think that work has been completed. Then 188 million worth of loans for micro entrepreneurs. I said because of the fact that you open bank accounts, you have linked up to the formal banking system, they were able to get all this. So therefore, I am just painting a very limited picture. There are a lot more work going on saturation, because you need to find out who has not received what, and that what has to be something which is very basic in nature, and we have to ensure that everybody gets covered, man. So now let's look at what we need to do. I think this is something which probably we need to brainstorm from time to time. I think because the landscape is constantly evolving, people's preferences and requirements are changing. So the Prime Minister's goal is that we build an India where there is world's every modern infrastructure. So focus on infrastructure. We should not be less than anyone. I think extreme hard work and courage is required. And Amrit Kal is of 25 years. That is from the 75th year to the 100th year. So we don't have a moment to lose. We have to achieve saturation. So the saturation goal is over the next couple of years, where I think we'll ensure to cover all the basic services for villages. Should have roads. All households should have bank accounts. We should connect every entitled person with the government's insurance, pension, housing schemes. All these are work in progress. I think over the next couple of years, I think a lot of these gaps will get filled up. So India at 100, that is at 2047, what do we hope to aspire? We hope to aspire social, digital and economic inclusion, because it's going to be a digital world. So we need to have digital inclusion as well. I think the villages also must get what the urban areas receive. Then there must be food, health and social security for all, a very difficult task. Saturation of critical infrastructure in rural and urban areas. And higher education gross enrollment rate to reach 50% by 2035 and 60% by 2047. And technology leadership, 10% of the global patents should be from India. And energy independence by 2047 and net zero by 2070. These are some of the big goals that we have set for ourselves. Now, in terms of economy also, I think we have a number of indicators. Like we aspire to be the second largest economy of $32 trillion by 2047. Grow 10 times the per capita income and become per capita income to rise to $20,000. GDP to be grow 15 times to 6.2 trillion. FDI to go 12 times to 1 trillion. So currently it borders around $80-90 billion a year. Exports to grow 12 times to US 8 trillion. Currently it's about $750 billion a year. And human capital to be the largest and youngest working population in the whole world, I think, with a median age of 29. So these are some of the things that we can aspire to achieve. Now again, this is a philosophical question, I think, because not to confuse you, but I think whether as a country we should be focused on wealth or well-being. This is a constant question. Well-being cannot be measured, whereas wealth can be measured. I think you divide the whole GDP by by the population, you get what is known as per capita income. Whether it reaches every hand, that's a different question. That then we talk about equality and so on and so forth. But so therefore, the well-being is also actually important, right? I think so. Whether we should aim to become a 32 trillion economy, or whether we should be aim to become a country of 2 billion who are all very happy, satisfied, contented, and happy. So whether we want to do that, I think this is a question. You can still have 32 trillion and be unhappy. Is that what you want to become? So this is a philosophical question which I think our friend from ISKCON is better probably suited to actually discuss and debate this topic. So this is a question, it's a philosophical question which I don't think the politics will be able to address that, because constantly it's our race to develop. If I don't move my economy by 10% per year, then I think I am called a bad politician, right? I think so. The discourse, public discourse has to change. Do you want to become a wealthy nation or a happy nation? this is a separate topic which needs to be discussed separately, I think. But I wouldn't go into that. But this is a question we must ask ourselves, because we are talking about 2047, right? We are not talking about today or tomorrow. Today and tomorrow all this jugaad can go on. But in 2047, whether the same jugaad should continue? Question mark. Okay, so I will continue the present jugaad of focusing on infrastructure. So that's I think very important for all of us. So again, let me show here that the correlation between infrastructure investment and GDP per capita is very strong, very strong. If you have good roads, good railway, train connections, if you have got good airports, you've got excellent, ports and airports, then I think then your GDP is going to go up, because people will want to invest here, right? And people want to come and work in India. Why do people go to China? Because they've got all of that, right? I think good infrastructure. So we must have good infrastructure. If you have good infrastructure, people will come to you, and therefore that's very, very important. It's a complete linear correlation. The correlation index also is very good. Similarly, I think the quality of infrastructure is also linked to the GDP. It is just not enough that you have got roads. You should have good roads, right? If you have roads with potholes every kilometer, then obviously I think your lorries are breaking down, your logistics cost goes up, you become unattractive. You need to have good quality infrastructure. Whatever you build, your roads have to last for say 20 years. Your tracks have to last for say about 50 years. Maybe your underground stations which you build for the metro railway has to last for maybe 70, 75 or 100 years. That is how you should build. That's very, very important. So these are very fundamental things that we have to understand. But in the infrastructure sector, I think we want to invest a lot of money into infrastructure. But why are people not investing? This is a question mark, I think. It's a policy question, right? So there is political uncertainty, right? You build a desalination plant in Chennai, and suddenly the state elections happen, and the next government says that, no, I want to cancel the contract. Next political government comes and says, no, I don't like this contract, I have to cancel it. So why will business put money in that, right? I build a solar plant in Andhra Pradesh, and suddenly the next government comes and says, no, I want to renegotiate your PPA, your power purchase agreement. So the poor fellow has already got millions of dollars from the bank on the premise that you are going to pay him 2 rupees 50 paise for that per unit of power. And then now suddenly you would say that I want to renegotiate. Where will you go? So political uncertainty has to go away from the plate. Whatever decisions we take must be, an agreement is an agreement is an agreement. It cannot be, an agreement is not a window for more agreements, right? Or more disagreements, right? An agreement is an agreement. It must be honored. Contracts must be honored like a law, I think. If contracts are honored in this country, disputes will not arise. People will be happy. People will come with their money because they know that if you have signed on something, you will honor it till it expires, right? So this is very, very important. Then corruption. Corruption is a major plague which affects many parts of the country. People have been talking about it. There have been some improvements in some parts of the country. So whether we want to live in this, I think in this is something which is very, very important. Because this actually adds, I explained to you how in logistics adds to it. Every element of business adds to it. You want to sell 1 unit of your product that you sold. If you take it outside your gate, or even before you have taken it outside the gate, some labor inspector will come to your factory and demands a bribe. Then obviously it adds to your production cost, even before it has left the factory gate. After it's left your factory gate, then starts the next set of problems. Your GST or whatever. So, corruption is not only within the government, it is also outside the government. I think the private sector also is responsible for the state of corruption in this country. So we need to probably handle that, with a great amount of, I think collectively there must be a conscience which actually works against corruption. Unless we handle this, I think our costs will remain high. Poor contract structure, I just mentioned, I think, contracts are loaded against the vendors in many cases. Many reforms have happened. Many contracts have been rewritten, redrafted. So that the businesses it should be an equal partnership, right? It's not as if a partner who is coming and building a road for you is a fellow who is out to rob your money. It is not like that, right? Government needs to look at from that perspective. A lot of reforms have happened in terms of rewriting those contracts, but a lot more has to be done. State governments have to do it. Local governments have to do it. Contracts have to become equal and fair. Then I think people will be willing to become contractors. Why there are no very large contractors except L&T, Shapurji, Pallonji, and just you name, you have only just a handful of 5 or 6 big companies. There are no companies. You go to any other country, there are 10, 15, 20, 30 very large companies which work on a global scale. So corruption is directly linked to the amount of contractors we have in this country, because people go bust. If they pay bribes today or tomorrow, they will go bust, right? So therefore, it's very important to have a good environment for business to thrive in the country so that they grow to scale. Then, so 1, 2, 3, all of them and finally result in inadequate contracting capacity. If you want to build good roads, if you don't have good contractors, how are you going to build them? Right? There must be contractors who have the capacity and the scale. So this is a major problem. Then finally, because of all this, again, you have creditworthiness of contractors. A contractor bids aggressively, he pays a bribe, he builds a poor quality contract, the contract gets a lot of penalties, a lot of cuts happen in the payments that it is due to him, then how will he become creditworthy? So it is like a vicious circle, you know, when all of them are vicious circles out of which you have to come out if you want to build high quality infrastructure in this country. So a lot of work is happening, but a lot more work has to happen. So there is a resultant cost and time overruns. You are a weak company. I am not able to go and negotiate with the bank and get a good working capital limit. So then my project gets delayed because I can't pay my vendors to buy the next installment of steel, right? So it becomes like a catch-22 situation. And finally, it affects the quality of implementation. So we have to get out of this mess at the state government level, at the local body level, so if you look at the national highways, today NHA has put in a set of reforms which actually has reformed a lot of these things. So today large contractors are able to come, but it will take time, I think, because all this takes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years by which time the companies get and build scale. So these are challenges which need to be addressed. So what are the policies that we have to boost infrastructure? This is very, very important. Today, I was part of a task force called the National Task Force for National Infrastructure Pipeline, which focuses on raising money for building infrastructure in this country. So our requirement, people estimate, is that at least we must invest between 20 to 25 lakh crores every year. If we are able to do that, then we will meet our goals. Currently, we are investing something between, government invests about 10 lakh crores. The balance about some 3, 4, 5 lakh crores comes from the private sector. They raise money through equity, through debt, and so on and so forth. So it's about 12, 13, 14 crores. It has to go to 20, 25 lakh. It's almost like double. It has to double if you have to reach our infrastructure goals. So for that, you have to solve all the problems which I stated in the previous slide. Right? If you are able to solve all those problems, people will come with money. Not only Indians, the foreign companies also might come in with their money. Right? So we need to, we are now doing, so this National Infrastructure Pipeline has been released, which identified all the projects which need to be implemented. You can go and browse for NIP, you know, I think on the internet. Then there is one more thing. Like for instance, companies are not able to say, I'll just give an example. The Delhi Airport Express line. You must have, some of you must have traveled by that between the airport and the city, you know, there's an express metro. So that private company took the job of building it. But then what happened was that the company, because of certain factors, it could, there was a violation of the contract or something like that, it had to be cancelled. So now the Delhi Metro Railway has taken over this because the company was not able to fulfill its obligations. Therefore, private companies to come and build and run projects, infrastructure projects, has become a very forbidding task because you have to put too much of money on the table. No company is there except maybe L&T or maybe a couple of companies. So therefore, it is very important that government invests in projects, construct the project, complete it, and then hand it over to the private sector to run it as on a toll road basis. Like many of the toll roads which you have seen are built by the government but run by private fellows. So I think that is what the government is doing now, and the process is called monetization, where you government builds the infrastructure like this Delhi-Mumbai expressway. It will be completed maybe in the next year or so, and the entire expressway is likely to be handed over to a private sector for an operate and maintain contract. They will take it for 20, 25 years. They will toll, but I think they will pay up the money upfront to us, which again can be put into some new project, right? I think so. This process is now being followed through the process of monetization. Last year, I think the government raised about 1 lakh crores by monetizing some of the assets. So every year, I think it's being built. You can Google for National Monetization Pipeline. There are a number of other structural reforms. We have set up a National Infrastructure Investment Fund to attract foreign pension capital. We have managed to attract about $1 billion from Australian pension funds, from Canadian pension funds. They all have trillions of dollars. So they are bringing it in because NIF is an excellent, reliable platform. Then we have set up an institution called NABFID. It is a national bank for financing infrastructure and development. Please, you can also Google for that. So this is a bank which is going to lend for infrastructure projects, because lending to infrastructure requires lot more capability, right? Because infrastructure projects are 20-year projects, 50-year projects. You cannot give a 5-year loan and say, pay back to me. Because a road, you invest $1 billion, will pay back over a period of 20 years or 25 years. So the loans have to be 20, 25. So the ordinary banks do not have that capability. So NABFID will do long-term bonds in the market, collect that money from the public, and then invest in private companies through loans for 20 years. So a lot of schemes like this have been implemented. PM Gati Shakti is for improving the logistics efficiency. National logistics policy is also for that. Then we have a viability gap funding scheme for funding the private sector in certain non-viable sectors and so on and so forth. Then, so if you look at our target, by 2047 we need to have world scale infrastructure. This is our requirement. See, in 2047 you will have 20 billion passengers who are traveling by railways as against 8 billion now. So we need to expand our rail network by, say, by 70,000 kilometers if you want to meet that kind of traffic requirements. So just calculate, how much money you will require for that. So all that adds up to that 20-25 lakh crores that you need to invest every year. So you have to find that money. Now the gap is between the 12 lakh crores we are able to invest now as against the 25 lakh crores. So another 12 lakh crores we have to find somewhere. So who is going to put that money? Either government has to cough it up from its coffers, or we have to get the private sector to invest. So you have to create an environment where the private sector will invest. So that is how things are. So like similarly highways, we have got the second largest road network, and by 2047 our road network will expand to 290,000 kilometers and almost doubles. So which means that we need to find that kind of money, right? So this is just to show what will be the demand for kinds of infrastructure and where we need to reach by 2047. These are from various government reports. Now coming to energy sector, I think this is also, we remember that first vulnerability of imported oil inflation, right? We need to bring down we need to eliminate oil from our economy. We have got enormous amount of sun, right, today in our economy. We can convert that solar energy into electrical energy or hydrogen, then I think we are there, right? So our task will be collectively to innovate and find technologies that can actually convert solar energy to hydrogen or to electrical energy. So this task, I think, if we are able to get this right, I think then we can rid of oil imported inflation and then become completely, and maybe at some point of time we can even export. India has got a very large country where probably solar energy can be probably enough to actually meet so many other people's demands as well. So I think the government has launched a hydrogen mission and a solar energy mission. The target is to generate about 500 gigawatt of solar, wind, etc. by 2030. But I think we need to do a lot more. So I just mentioned, I think we need to ramp up the annual investment to 20 lakh crores. That is, as a percentage of GDP, it has to rise to about 4.6 from the current maybe 2% or something like that. And then the answers therefore lie in attracting significant equity capital from foreign companies, especially on greenfield projects, expanding availability and tenor of debt. I think we should be able to provide 20-year loans to companies, reducing the costs of equity and debt capital. We saw that earlier. Yeah, so some of the policy prescription is focus on quality, eliminate various uncertainties. I just explained to you how contracts should be honored. Can we ensure that all these uncertainties can be eliminated? Can then de-risk all the infrastructure investments. You have a speedy dispute resolution. You may have a contract dispute between you as a builder and I as a government agency, but we should have a mechanism by which we can quickly resolve the dispute and move ahead instead of getting the project getting stuck, because of the unresolved disputes. So we need to find out how. The government has actually set up a mechanism to do that through a conciliation mechanism, and that has helped a lot of this national highways project to get their disputes redressed. Then expanding capital sources and reducing cost of capital. So I think we need to ensure that probably we deepen our corporate bond markets, we deepen municipal reforms, because a lot of money will have to be spent by the municipalities for building roads, water supply, sewerage, etc., etc. So we need to ensure that municipal reforms happen in terms of their ability to raise money in the market. So similarly for digital infrastructure, I've talked about the general infrastructure. For digital infrastructure, we need to cover all the villages by connectivity, so all villages are not left behind. 5G to reach all districts and towns by end of 2023. Already we have rolled out about 270,000 5G base stations. And then we have a low Earth orbit broadband satellites which are going to get launched, which have been launched, but the services are likely to be launched by end of this year. So even in the mountainous terrain, I think you will be able to get a 1 Gbps capacity through your LeoSat, VSATs. Then affordable devices. We need to have affordable devices to actually enable the bottom of the pyramid to access internet services. And then next wave of digital public infrastructure, such as the ONDC, universal health stack, agri stack, and so on and so forth. And finally, an enabling legislation to govern data, like the PDP bill, which is being introduced in Parliament, the Personal Data Protection Bill. And finally, a data protection monetization framework for government. So this will ensure that the digital sector has the ability to have complete the foundation to enable the digital economy to grow. Currently, I think they say about 10% of our GDP comes from the digital. So by 2030, I think we expect about 20% of our GDP to come from digital. So for that, we need to ensure that the foundation of all this, of the digital infrastructure has to be provided. I will, I think how much time do I have? I think.
We have some time, sir. For the presentation to get over, we have another 10-15 minutes.
Okay, all right. So now I will touch upon technology and innovation. See, first we saw the infrastructure vertical on what we need to do. We need to invest heavily in infrastructure. We need to get our policies right on infrastructure to create a policy, an environment of certainty and ease of doing business. Now, the second pillar on which I think I am premising India's growth at 2047 will be technology and innovation. Because a lot of work is already happening, but a lot more has to happen in a very different way. I mean, I think we need to change the way I think technology and innovation happens in this country significantly different from what we are doing now. So, I mean, Shastri ji gave us the slogan of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Atal ji added Jai Vigyan to it. I think now Prime Minister Modi has added Jai Anusandhan to it, I think. Unless research happens, fundamental research happens, I think we will not be able to have the benefits that flow to the Jawan and the Kisan and the businessman and so on and so forth. So therefore, research is a very, very important element of our new economy, and therefore we all need to work towards and contribute in our little bit. So if you look at our national priorities for technology, I mean, I think we can have technology, I mean, sectors in which I think we want to develop technologies. I mean, that is happening. But in terms of the national, this thing, I think our focus area will be agri and food. Energy, I think this is very, very important to us. You know, you saw how imported oil inflation is affecting the country. So we need to have a solution to that through hydrogen, solar, offshore wind, storage technologies for storing energy. Because what happens is that energy is generated during daytime, right? But how to make it available equally during night time is an important thing, right? I think so. The Prime Minister has launched a new concept called as One World, One Grid. I think many of you must have heard of that, right? There is half night time in one part of the globe, half daytime, right? During the daytime countries, energy can be pumped through a global grid to the night countries, you know. I think then you don't have to worry about, I mean, burning oil during night time, right? I think so. So this One World, One Grid maybe is a future solution, maybe 10 years, 30 years, 40 years from now. Climate technologies, this is very, very important, I think, because climate risk has affected us very seriously, and therefore, before it becomes too late, I think we must invest in climate mitigation technologies of various kinds, right, I think. And probably energy is linked directly to that, but there are a lot more to climate mitigation than just energy. And then healthcare. So these are the four, I would say, very important national priorities. I mean, there could be maybe one or two more, I think, I mean, that's debatable subject. Like say, digital and so on and so forth, and communication. Now, if you look at the roadblocks to our technology vision, I mean, what prevents us from getting there, or what is wrong, or what is right, I think is something which we must see. See, out of the 40,000 higher education institutions, less than 1% actively participate in high quality research. It's a very sad state of affairs, right? In Tamil Nadu, I think, for instance, I know there are at some point of time nearly about 1,000 engineering colleges. Andhra, they say maybe several thousands. Today, I think in Tamil Nadu, I think at least about 300, 400 have shut shop, right? Because they were all looking at the very easy money making in creating so-called low quality engineering graduates, right? I think so that business will not sustain itself because there is no principle in this whole thing. I think it doesn't deliver value to society. So these kind of fly-by-night operators are there in the education sector, which has actually badly impacted the sector. So, I mean, forgetting about that, at least the top institutions, at least the top, say, 10% or 20% of institutions must focus on research. I mean, I think it's very, very important. Because unless you innovate, then the purpose of that institution doesn't arise. You can educate a person, but then I think it has to go beyond that. If that institution has to develop strong fundamentals in terms of the quality of education, it must have research. If it doesn't have research, it cannot deliver quality education to its graduate students also, or undergraduate students for that matter. So therefore, it's very important that we look at how to get more and more institutions into research. They must have MTech programs, PhD programs, and so on and so forth. If you look at the IP5 patents are patents which are registered in at least 5 global patent offices, right? So there are 12,000 IP5 patents granted to Indian researchers in 2019 as against 3,90,000 patents in China. You look at its scale, it's about like 30 times our scale. So fundamentally, some research is being done in our country, but our people are not taking the pains to actually have them registered in the Indian Patent Office and also maybe in the International Patents Office also. If you do that, then I think probably you get protection for the creativity that you have invested in, right? So that difficulty, I think that pain we have to get over. I think there needs to be an overall countrywide traction to actually file more patents wherever it is required. And then India has 253 researchers FTE per million population against 1225 for China. I think this is all from the World Science Report. Some of you can go and visit some of you who are interested can visit the World Science Report, which is published by UNCTAD every year. So it compares various countries on how we stand with reference to technology. The Indian Patent Office has only 860 patent examiners as against 13,000 in China. So therefore our patents to get examined takes about, what used to take about 2.5, 3 years. Today, now it has, thanks to the efforts of the government, I think it has been brought down to about 1.5 years. But that is not good enough. I think we need to bring it down further. So we need to have a large number of patent examiners. Then the other thing is the investment that we make in research. Between government and private sector, how we invest in research is also counts, right? You have to, if you earn, say, a profit of, say, 100 crores, you must set apart 10, 15, 20 crores for research. Many companies don't do that because for them, that 15, 20 crores, if they put in production, maybe they think that probably they can make an extra buck. But they don't think that while they are investing in research, they are investing in for tomorrow, not for today. But that kind of thinking process is not there in many parts of our industry, even the small industry for that matter. There are many, many schemes which the governments have brought out to actually enable companies to actually invest in research. In the Department of Telecom, we have brought out a fund called the Technology Development Fund. And we are large companies, we give grants anything between 50 to 110 crores, 20 crores. And there is a small grant program called a DCIS where we give small grants of 10 lakhs, 50 lakhs, up to 1 crore to various startups for doing research in telecom. Similarly, I think the Department of Science and Technology has got research programs, many other departments which have programs which enable you to undertake research. So companies need to invest in research. That's the short point, I think. And look at the scale, I think. India invests about 0.7% of its GDP in research between the government and public and the private put together. Whereas China, it is about, say, 2.3%, which is significantly large, I think, at least about 3 to 4 times. Volume of scientific publications. There is a lot of research done in this country. People do PhD thesis and all that stuff. But people should publish, right? People should file patents, should also publish. So unless we do that, then I think the innovation doesn't gain traction. I think you will not be able to get the benefit of innovation, I think. So your visibility is not there, your scale is not there. So you look at the scale, I think. So India is far low in terms of the number of publications. If you look at the compared to China, the blue line, I'm sorry, this is by subject. So we need to actually, while the world is going up very fast, I think India needs to also improve its number of publications. This is for educational institutions. Then this is just to show how the investment in research is linked to and the investment by the private sector are connected. So if the government is able to invest significantly, the private also tends to invest. So India is somewhere here, I think. So whereas if you look at Japan and China, I think how they are in the scale where at least look at China. China, 80% of the share of the investment comes from the private sector because the government is able to boost it. It moves further, and then therefore the private sector also is incentivized to invest. So we need to probably invest much more in research. Today the government has brought out a bill which is now pending in Parliament called a National Research Foundation Bill. So under that, I think what is expected is that at least about 50,000 crores of money which is spent through government research programs will be brought for high quality research by the private sector. So if this comes through maybe in the next year or two, I think maybe we'll see big scale research happening in this country. So systemic reforms, I think maybe these are some of the reforms that we expect to do. I think from the government, I think maybe private sector also has to think of something similar. We need to build engagement units. In our ministry, for the first time, Telecom department has been in existence since independence. For the first time, we have formed a research unit, I think, which actually has a 500 crore fund every year to be funded for research. and we have tied up with the academia, and the process has been kick-started. So therefore, every ministry should actually invest some amount of its money, say 1% or 5% of its budget on research. Then I think probably we will get an equal share from the private sector. So if I put 5 crores on the table, then probably that company also will put 5 crores on the table. So what you are actually doing is leveraging, I think your money with their money and creating a scale, which leads to greater investment in research and development. Then we need to incentivize mobility of researchers between ministries, government labs. This is also important, as change in government policy is required. I think we are now proposing that, in the sense that as somebody in the academic institution, he should come and work in my ministry, in my research unit, and enable, his experience to actually enable to support and facilitate a lot more researchers than he was doing in his institution. Similarly, from the policy maker, I think some people should go and work in the industry, they should go in the research, and then come back again after, say, 5-10 years. They come back with a lot of experience, right? So this horizontal mobility between various scale of institutions actually improves diversity, it improves the quality of thinking and the depth of policy making that happens in the government. So I would strongly encourage, I think maybe this is something we must propose, research and then support and facilitate, all of us collectively together, we are recommending that. Then we have to ramp up the government R&D outlays. Obviously, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Currently, from 0.7% is a long way to go. But I think some of the policy measures that we are taking will help us to do that. We should have a sharp increase in the PhD and the postdoc. A lot of our PhDs actually go abroad. Some of them stay back. But I think time has come now, because India, a lot of research, fundamental research is happening. Most of the multinational companies have their back offices in India. You go to Bangalore, the Googles of the world, the Intels and the Qualcomms, all of them have got huge research establishments where our PhDs and scholars are working. So there is a huge demand for PhD scholars doing fundamental research in many of the technology areas. So I think we need to scale up the numbers. Then government labs to transform into collaborative R&D. I'm only saying what I have done, I think. We have an institution called CDOT. CDOT was spending about 250 crores every year on its own staff. They were doing research and they were throwing out a lot of things. Like the 4G core that we have launched in the public recently is a India-built stack, telecom stack. But that is not enough. So what we have told them, we have raised their research grant, their total grants to 550 crores. This year, I think we are giving them 550 crores. We have told them at least about 100 crores should be given to the private sector. We are giving you money to do collaborative research program. Don't do it alone. Get the startups, get the large companies, do collaborative projects so that the go-to-market will be faster. It's not enough that government labs produce something and keep it to themselves, look for people to come and buy the technology and then take it to the market. That will be a very long, drawn-out process. Instead of that, co-opt them in the research, the design stage itself, so that the go-to-market will be very fast. You will be able to launch products much faster. So they have now, for the first time, 75 crores has been given to 2 companies, I think, which called Visig, which is a IIT Hyderabad startup, and VVDN, which is located in Noida, Gurgaon. So these 2 companies are building a Bharat 5G Open RAN. You must have heard of the radios which sit on the mast, They're all Nokias and Ericssons and Samsung. So they are building a 5G Open RAN radio for India, and we have given them 75 crores. CDOT is working with them, and it will be launched by the end of this year. So similarly, I think we need to launch a sovereign patent fund. Small companies struggle to get the patent. So suppose I want to build a 5G radio. There are at least about 50 patents which I may have to, which belong to Nokia or Samsung or Ericsson, right? Because that is how the standards are built, unfortunately. So when I negotiate with Nokia will try and screw you so that you will never build your radio. Because he's building radios. So therefore, he doesn't want you to have that. Though, of course, the 3GPP, which is the mobile standards body, says that you should offer these patents on a FRAND basis, fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. But it doesn't happen in the real world, right? So we need to have a sovereign patent fund, which will be a country's patent fund, which will negotiate with Nokia and say, I'll buy your patents, make it available to my 5 startups who will build radios, right? So at least about 10 countries have done that. We have given the proposal to the government to build a 1,000 crore patent fund, which will buy pharma patents, which will buy maybe biotech patents or whatever patents, and make it available to our SMEs and startups. Then we need to raise the number of patent examiners who will ensure that faster grant of patents to people. Complete overhaul of the institutional policy. See, if there is a professor who has filed a patent and has built a product, he should get his promotion maybe faster than a fellow who has actually not even made a publication, right? So today, the institutional policies focus on publications. We must focus on patents and creating jobs in the market. If somebody is able to productize his patent, then he should be given an extra promotion, right, I think. So institutional policies, which is completely reoriented towards research, and I'm sure that professors and research scholars will actually double up on the speed with which they innovate. So I'll stop here, and I think maybe it's time for some questions before I leave. Thank you. Yes, please.
Introduce yourself and then
Hello. Good morning, sir. This is Sarthak Sharma. I just graduated from IIT Roorkee.
Yes.
And my question is based on a personal observation. When we raise the bar for contracts or change the mechanisms of tender allocation, how would we simultaneously upskill and empower the semi-organized thekedars in our cities who have been dependent on the previous systems for their livelihood, so that they don't completely lose their source of livelihood to capital-rich systems and high income individuals?
Okay, so I mean, this is a very difficult question because unfortunately, please sit down, I think. So this Tekadars in the ground, I think not the L&Ts, I'm not talking about this. Tekadar means contractor, right? I think my Hindi is a little bad. So there is this political, what do you say, nexus which operates in the ground, I think. I know somebody, I think fix the contracts, you get the Tekadar. So this breeds a brand of contractors who are basically, perverts, I think I would call them that way, I think. So because they're not game to actually improve quality of performance, they are not game to actually deliver high quality infrastructure, etc. This gaming is a totally different game which is running. That system has to change. The complete system has to change. So I don't have an answer to this question. The answer is that unless the way contracts are delivered is cleaned up, it will not happen. But at some high level it is happening. Like the National Highways Authority, it has cleaned up a lot of the mess which has happened in the past. Now I think we are getting high quality contracts. The road quality has improved in general, I think. So systemic reforms will take time. These kind of reforms will take time. So we need to remove ensure contracts are given transparently. If the bidding process is transparent, you will get good quality contracts. The quality technical specifications and the eligibility conditions of the contract should ensure while there is competition, there is also quality, right? So the bidding process dictates all that. What do you specify as eligibility conditions for a contractor? Then finally, implementation. The supervisory process also is very important. If the contracts are written properly, then it will ensure that you get money for performance, right? So today, I think some of the contracts which are written is a performance contract. You don't give contract to build something. You give a contract for building, operating and maintaining. So that you take responsibility. If I were to just given a build contract, what happens? I will put some third-rate stuff because I know that I get my money, I can run away. I don't have to see whether it works for the next 1 year or 2 years. Though of course, penalties may catch up with you. But fly-by-night operators are there. So therefore, if you have build, operate, maintain contracts which will ensure that you have to maintain it for the next 10 years, then I will ensure that I will put proper optic fibers, good quality optic fibers underground. I will ensure that my maintenance costs are lower, are put under the ground, right? I think so. I will think like that. So I think you have to draw your contracts which incentivize performance. The overall administrative system has to undergo a change on how you look at contractors, right? I think so. All this will make a difference. It has made a difference. Some of the road contracts are now of good quality. And thirdly, I think last thing is that like the telecom sector itself, I will say, while DOT was managing the entire network, we had 2 crore customers in 1998. Overnight, a decision was made to throw it open to the private sector. Today, we have got 117 crore subscribers, right? Because you gave it to the private sector. So I think the involvement of the private sector in all forms of business is absolutely important, especially in infrastructure. So, maybe licensing, concessions, building, providing them the environment so that I think they can invest, they can operate, build, etc. will provide the best results. Today you have the Geos and the Airtels who are running high quality facilities. Today we wouldn't dream of covering every part of the country through 5G the way we used to do business 30 years back, right? I think it would not have been done. So providing the policies which promote private investment, I think is the best way forward, I think, in all the infrastructure sectors. Maybe there may be some sectors where you will not be able to do that, like health, for instance. Health is a sector where private sectors also invest. But there are many areas like, say, rural areas. Rural areas, health may not be a priority for the commercial health sector. They will not put up hospitals there. Their government comes in through, say, providing its infrastructure. So it has to be a balanced policy. In areas where there is viability gap, private will not come. Either you provide viability gap funding for them to set it up, or the government itself invests and asks the private sector to run, or the government itself runs. So there are multiple models. I think there's no single solution to the problems so diverse in our country. So therefore, we'll have to work with different models in different pockets, different models for different sectors, and so on and so forth. But I think at the end of the day, we must have good policies which promote the private sector investment, which provides certainty to private sector, which encourages them to invest more and more, I think.
Hello, sir. My name is Aman Sharma. I am a student at Rashtram School of Public Leadership, Rishi University. My question is, sir, BSNL is, strategically very important to this nation, as important as ISRO, perhaps, if not more so. My question is, it has failed over the years, and last month we saw a revival package which came into force. But what are the major challenges BSNL is currently facing, and how can we ensure that a strategically important sector company like BSNL should not be allowed to fail, and how can we ensure that it comes back to its feet?
No, so it's a difficult question. So in the telecom sector, the government took the plunge in 98, 99 to privatize. So a lot of private players have come in telecom. Airtel, Vodafone, and Jio are there. So in this context, what happened? BSNL's performance, I think a public sector company finds it difficult because obviously it is not like the private sector. It has got a lot of limitations on its own. By design, public sector will have its limitations. So the government took a decision to actually keep BSNL because there was a choice between disinvestment or keeping it alive. Because of the falling competition in the sector, what used to have 13 players in 2010, today is down to 4 players, including BSNL, right? So because of the intense competition in the sector, big player versus small player, medium-sized players, etc. So BSNL's presence in that sector for competitiveness is crucial. So that is a strategy, first strategy. Second strategy came after 2019. In 2019, you had this Galwan clash, in which I think the government found a lot of national security vulnerabilities in various sectors. One of them was telecom. We were having ZTE, Huawei, and other networks in our system. So then suddenly we realized that it's time to actually look at a domestic telecom stack, which will meet our interests. So therefore, for that purpose also BSNL support was extended, because it would to force a private sector to adopt a domestic telecom stack is not possible in a free licensing regime. So we decided that we will give money to BSNL to support the local companies to actually develop an Indian telecom stack. So today now I think about a few months back I think we gave an order, a very large order, about $4 billion to, nearly about 24,000 crores to nearly 20,000 crores to TCS, Tejas and C-Dot combined. C-Dot is a government institution which has developed the 4G core. The radio network is being developed by Tejas, which is a Tata company, and TCS is developing the overall other applications. So we have now an Indian 4G stack. This will turn into a 5G stack shortly. So the purposes, therefore, why BSNL is being supported is number one. Therefore, from a competition perspective, there has to be a fourth player, and then also for building a local telecom stack. So I think from these two purposes, I think BSNL will continue to play a marginal role, maybe a 10% role as it continues to be. Maybe it may improve to 15% or something like that. So we expect it to serve, and not only that, BSNL also presence in some of the very remote areas is very significant. If you go to border areas and all those things, there's nothing except BSNL which is present. So those also are getting upgraded to 4G shortly. So it will play a strategic filling the gap role, very important role, and also it implements very important government projects. I think there is a very strategic project of the armed forces which it's implementing, and also it's implementing a project of taking optic fibers to all the villages called BharatNet. So that also is something which is being implemented by them. So it fulfills some very important purposes which the private sector is not able to fulfill.
हेलो सर.
Yes.
मेरा नाम संदीप कुमार है. मैं IIT रुड़की से PhD करता हूँ इकोनॉमिक्स में. Sir, can you go to the slide where you have mentioned the research and development on expenditure on research and development, expenditure on research and development?
Yeah, I'll go there.
हाँ सर. तो इसमें जैसे अभी हम अपने पहले स्लाइड में डिस्कस किया है कि रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ और डेवलपमेंट को बढ़ाता है. तो जब ये प्रूवन फैक्ट है तो गवर्नमेंट क्यों ग्रेजुअली रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट पे एक्सपेंडिचर धीरे धीरे कम कर रहा है?
No, that's what I'm saying. So it does not happen like that. it happened because the policies were not in place. Now the government has moved a bill called the National Research Foundation Bill. Nearly about 50,000 crores is going to be pumped into the research because of that. So I think work is in progress. So I think, this announcement was made in 19. It took a long time because a lot of the scientific departments had to agree to that. So this amount is spread between various scientific departments and spent in government labs. So this process is now in way. I think, though I would agree that probably I think we should have actually taken some steps for that. So therefore, the work is on the process. I think maybe in the next few years you will see the transformation.
Yes, sir.
And like for instance, I told the example of my own department. We were spending zero on research. Now today, I think we have put 500 crores on the table every year. So I think there is a move. I think a lot more work needs to be done.
यस सर, मेरा दूसरा क्वेश्चन रिसर्चर के पर्सपेक्टिव से है। चूँकि मैं तो आईआईटी हूँ तो मुझे तो सफिशिएंट अमाउंट में फेलोशिप मिलती है, बट जब आप यूनिवर्सिटी में जाएंगे तो वहाँ पे एक रिसर्चर को एक मंथ का 8,000 मिलता है। तो वो साइंस में भी रिसर्च करता है तो उसके लिए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है कि वो रिसर्च पे फोकस करवाए, कि उसकी इस एज में उसको अपने घर को भी देखना होता है। तो वहाँ पे क्या रिसर्चर को जो मैंने ऑब्जर्व किया कि वो रिसर्च पे बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस ना हो के गवर्नमेंट जॉब में पीसीएस यूपीएससी वगैरह में फोकस करने लगते हैं, तो जो उनकी प्रोडक्टिविटी रिसर्च में वो नहीं आ पाती। तो गवर्नमेंट इसके लिए क्या ऐसा प्लान लेके आ रही है फेलोशिप को, ताकि उनकी एक मिनिमम जो एक्सपेंडिचर रिक्वायरमेंट है वो फुलफिल हो पाए और वो रिसर्च पे ज़्यादा फोकस कर पाएँ?
Good point. I think I don't have, frankly, an answer to that because it's a very, very important question. The point you're trying to make is that why don't you increase the budget outlay on providing research fellowships to research students? It's a good question. I think, in fact, recently in the last 5-6 years back, I think the Prime Minister's research fellow program has been expanded. But I agree that is not enough. We must increase the pool, both the amount of money given to individuals as well as the overall budget outlay. I think the point taken. Yeah.
Namaste, sir.
Yes. No, doesn't matter. I can hear you. I think. Yeah.
Hello. Namaste, sir. My name is Makarand Patil. I work for Citibank in Pune. So, like we know that government is opening up the lateral positions, wanted to get the people into this nation building process from private industries because of the experience that they have, the global experience that they have, right? So a very personal question to you is like, obviously private players know there is like monetary, there is not a lot of benefit in the government.
Correct.
But what personally do you think that, could energize, keep the passion up for any individual like me to, come and work in this, in this process of nation building?
So, a good question. So, essentially, monetary incentives cannot serve the purpose because obviously government pay will always be maybe an order of magnitude less than what you receive in the private sector. But I think the government experience is of a much different order. I think maybe it's the reverse order of magnitude. So therefore, from that perspective, I see a lot of very talented individuals wanting to work in government. I think we need to have a policy which enables that, I think. So I was talking precisely about that, how we can enable movement of high quality professionals between research, academia, government, implementation agencies, and so on and so forth, I think. So if we have a good policy which offers these opportunities, I'm sure that high quality individuals will keep moving. And that will actually, the multiplier effect will be huge, I can tell you that, I think. So I don't think money is at all, money is the least of the issues. So because in the last few years, I think they have introduced a lateral entry program. They still to evaluate the success of that scheme because it's small in scale. So I see a lot of potential in that. I think I only hope that it scales up in the near future.